Today, we're going to dig into the strategy of a company that doesn't just invest in the economy, it actually helps shape it. This is the playbook for Blackstone, and if you can understand it, you get a pretty incredible glimpse into where trillions of dollars might be headed next. First things first, let's just try to get our heads around the scale we're talking about. Blackstone manages over $1.2 trillion in assets. That's not just a lot of money, it's a new industry record. A number so huge it has its own financial gravity. And here's the key, right? When you're managing that much capital, you're not just reacting to what the market does day to day. You're trying to see around corners. So what exactly does a firm with this kind of bird's eye view see coming down the pike? So let's start with their big picture take on the U.S. economy. This is what their top brass is telling investors right now. Okay, so you can think of their view like a balancing act. On one side, pushing things up, they see two massive engines firing on all cylinders. First, interest rates are coming down, which makes it cheaper for companies to borrow and grow. And second, there's this absolutely massive investment boom happening, all thanks to AI. But they're not just wearing rose-colored glasses. On the other side of the scale, they're waving a few yellow flags, pointing out that some consumers are starting to pull back on spending, and the construction industry is still dealing with some supply chain headaches. And you can really feel that overall optimism in this quote from Blackstone's president, John Gray. For the last couple of years, deal-making has been in a historic drought. But now he says the deal dam is finally breaking. All that activity, mergers, acquisitions, IPOs, it's all starting to flow again. So if the dam is breaking and all that capital is about to be unleashed, where exactly is Blackstone aiming that fire hose of money? Well, that brings us to what they're calling a new industrial revolution. They're basically zeroing in on three transformative megatrends that are reshaping the physical world. Think about it. They're betting huge on digital infrastructure, the actual data centers that are the engine for the whole AI revolution. Then there's the massive need for new power to run all that tech. And finally, modern transportation, the ports, warehouses, and logistics that get all that stuff you order online to your door. And is this strategy working? Oh yeah. Look at this number. Their infrastructure investments have appreciated a staggering 19.3% over just the last 12 months. This isn't some fuzzy long-term theory. It is delivering huge returns right now. Now, to really grasp Blackstone's dominance, you have to understand this really fundamental shift that's been happening kind of under the surface of our financial system. This stat right here is it's mind-blowing. Let it sink in for a second. 90% of U.S. companies making over $100 million a year are private. That means the vast majority of the real, productive American economy, well, you and I just can't buy their stock on the open market. So where are these companies? They live in what are called private markets. It's a whole different world where, instead of selling shares on a stock exchange, businesses get their funding directly from big, specialized investors, firms like Blackstone. And this trend is just dramatic. While the universe of these large private companies has exploded, the number of companies you can actually invest in on the stock market has been basically cut in half over the past few decades. And for a lot of businesses, it makes sense. Staying private often means fewer regulatory headaches and less pressure to hit quarterly numbers. So, this growing power of the private markets leads us right to Blackstone's next colossal growth strategy. If that's where the action is, their plan is to bring huge new pools of money into that world. And they're making a major push into three massive markets that, up until now, have been mostly walled off from these kinds of alternative investments. We're talking about the global insurance industry, the wealth of individual high net worth investors, and what they see as the biggest prize of all, our retirement savings. And yeah, that retirement opportunity, that's the one they see as the real game changer. They frame it as a story of a fundamental imbalance in our country, a tale of two very different retirement realities. Just look at this chart. On the left, you've got your traditional pension plans, the defined benefit kind. See that? They have about a third of their money invested in alternatives, the exact kind of stuff Blackstone does. Now look to the right. That's the modern 401k plan, the kind most of us have today. Their allocation to those same assets, it's pretty much zero. Nothing. Blackstone's CFO puts it bluntly. He says this has created a world of haves and have-nots. In other words, one group of retirees gets access to a huge, growing part of the economy, and the other group is completely locked out. And Blackstone, of course, would love to be the one to open that gate for them. And the size of that prize is just staggering. It's a $12 trillion market in the U.S. alone. And now that some of the regulations are starting to change and clear a path, Blackstone is positioning itself to be a major player in bringing private investing to the masses. Okay, so let's put it all together. Blackstone sees all these enormous trends: AI, the energy transition, the shift to private markets, all converging at once and setting the stage for their next big chapter. And even as the firm celebrates its 40th anniversary, there's absolutely no sense that they're slowing down. The message from the very top, from founder and CEO Steven Schwartzman, is one of total confidence. As he puts it, the best is still ahead. And that really leaves us with the big, critical question to chew on. As this massive shift from public to private markets keeps going, and this world that was once only for a select few becomes the new mainstream, what does that ultimately mean for the everyday investor, for people like you and me, and our ability to build wealth in the economy of the future? That's the real trillion-dollar question.